All right. Welcome, everyone, to the DNA Decoded monthly group coaching call. My name is Crystal, and I'm here with Dr. Sam. I think you've all met him before, but if you haven't,
Uh,
he
yeah.
is our functional medicine doctor here at Dr. Sam Shay. And this is his special guest, Lily, who might be in the same room as him, taking a nap.
Lily is actually with Auntie Tracy.
Oh,
Lily, I have a dear colleague of mine, also a functional medicine practitioner named Dr. Tracy Potter.
hmm.
She's Lily's auntie, and she Tracy has requested if she can spend a good 4 or 5 days with Lily,
Oh,
and very happy to uh, have her have her spend some time with Tracy. Tracy takes very good care of her.
oh, good.
Yeah.
Nice. And my name is Crystal. As Kelly did last week for Fit Teens, I'm changing up the picture. This is my husband, my son, and I. So I am a soccer mom, a Navy spouse, and I'm a homesteader in Connecticut, and I love hiking and puzzles outside of everything that I love to do here. So today we're going to be talking about the Carb Choice Blueprint, which is all about carbohydrates. So Kelly and Dr. Sam just collaborated and created an awesome updated Carb Choice report. And we're going to be diving into everything in that report. So it's really exciting. We're going to talk about the meal plans that are included based on your diet style, as well as food prep and exercise and all things carb choice. So if you have your carb choice report, I recommend pulling it up so that you can reference it as we're going through the new report. Oh, let's go back.
So I will,
So I'll let
Crystal, if
you
you let me
share, Dr.
share,
Sam.
if you let me
Yes.
share, then I can pop up the. All right. So, uh, is there anyone here? Actually, let me just. That's the wrong way to start. All right. So what the Carb Choice Blueprint is a novel genetics test that's not normally found in other genetics companies. So this test is unique in multiple ways. First off, it's not a green, yellow, red dot thing. It's not telling you what version of the gene we're looking at. We're looking at the number of duplicates because of this gene. We're trying to find out how well you can generate the enzyme amylase to break down carbohydrates to what is your carb tolerance? What is your capacity to handle carbohydrates on a daily basis? And what I'm going to do is show you the updated report. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. Nope, I think I need to go to the view. Wrong fit. View. All right, we're going to do that. Okay, so what we're going to learn is what is your relationship, what is your unique relationship to carbohydrates, to starches, and that there's different people that over the course of human evolution and in different as the human race spread out across the world into different environments and different societies, and some societies had access to lots of agriculture, some didn't at all, and some had kind of this in-between space. And that uh, what our genes have done is been able to help us adapt to our carbohydrate environment. And there's a gene called the AMY1 gene, AMY1. AMY1 stands for amylase. Amylase is the enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates in the saliva. And the reason why this enzyme is important is that it's the first stage to break down carbohydrates in the process of your digestion. If you don't mix amylase with carbohydrates, then you're going to have indigestion from your carbs, and it's going to create digestive problems. It's going to create energy problems. It's going to create even mood problems, as it did with me. Because if your digestion is off, then your gut begins to act strangely, and it affects inflammation, digestion, energy, and the way it affects mood is that 80+% of your neurotransmitters that are made in your for your brain are made in your gut. So if you disrupt what's going on with your gut, you're going to disrupt the chemicals that help influence how you feel and how you think. The best way to understand what's going on is we'll look at analogy two here, cannons lining a fort. So if your digestive system is a fort, and then the Vikings charging the fort uh, are the carbs, you want as many cannons lining that fort as possible. And the AMY1 gene is that cannon. Now, the number of AMY1 genes you have is the number of cannons lining that fort. So the fewer number of cannons you have, the worse off you're going to be. So if someone has a carb choice number of two, like me, I only have two cannons, versus someone who has 10 carb choice, they have 10 cannons. So they can take down 5 times as many carbs as I could, which is a huge difference. So your carb choice number is the number of genes, a number of copies of this gene of the AMY1 gene that are your cannons lining the fort. Another analogy is like the number of carb scissors. Like the more scissors you have, the faster you can cut up these carbs. So now, can there's some tests out there that claim that they can tell you what your carb tolerance is based on your AMY1 gene variation, and that's not really true because what they're looking at is the green, yellow, red dot of the AMY1 gene. So that's looking at the version of the cannon. Is it a green cannon, a yellow cannon, or a red cannon? We're looking at the number of cannons. Now, the AMY1 gene is one of those unusual genes where the difference between the green, the green, yellow, and red copy is kind of trivial. So I'm just going to pick a number out of the air just to illustrate the point. The green cannon shoots 100 things per unit time. The yellow is 95 and the red is 90. So I would still rather have 10 red cannons at 90 shots per unit time each than one green cannon. The difference is not that much to make a real difference. It's for if it's a green, yellow, or red cannon. I'm more interested is how many cannons do I have, period, of whatever color. Uh, any questions about that analogy? Okay. So uh, once you know your carb number, your cannon number, your carb choice number, then now it's a matter of applying it. How do you know how many carbs you can tolerate? So here is the game plan. The step one, know your number means know what your carb choice score is. Then learn what's something called the finger rule, which is a system that I developed to uh, modify your number according to your body size. Then choose smart carbs. Then there are ways to boost the amount of enzyme you make per cannon. So you're increasing the firing rate. So you can have the number of cannons, but you can also increase the firing rate of each cannon through several things. And actually, the top five are listed here. There's some additional recommendations around exercise, and then there's a section on supportive supplements. So just to get started, if you're wanting to be able to tolerate carbohydrates more, there's 5 things you can do right away. Number one is to chew more. Now, chewing more does a couple things. One, it mechanically breaks down carbohydrates. But the other thing is that it gives your body much more time for the saliva to mix with your carbs, therefore giving more saliva and more enzyme time to act, to break, to cut up or shoot down those carbs. Additionally, chewing more will engage your parasympathetic or rest and digest nervous system so that it will actually generate more saliva. So you're winning on all counts if you chew more. Option two is you eat greens first. Now, greens at the beginning of a meal are bitter and they trigger your vagus nerve to secrete more saliva and increase digestion. So increasing saliva means that there's more amylase available to break down those carbs. Option three is you time your exercise, is that w when you exercise, whether it's endurance exercise or high intensity interval training, you can boost the firing rate of your cannons by up to 500% over the next 2 or so hours. Now, what this doesn't mean is you have to exercise within 2 hours of every carbohydrate meal. That's not what this is saying. The is that if you want to have the highest number, if you're planning on having a high carb experience during the day, ideally you would time your exercise to uh, be within 2 hours of that meal, so you have the maximum firing rate going into that high carbohydrate meal. Think of it like I grew up outside the Boston Marathon route. A carb loading for exercise. What this case is you exercise first, then you eat the carb loads. Then option four is that you minimize foods that lower the firing rate. Things like berries. Now, this is not saying berries are bad. It's just food's complicated. Some foods, even though they may be health foods, do shut down amylase. So you can eat those, and we have a whole list of those foods. You eat those foods away from other carbs, so you're not lowering the firing rate when you need it the most. And you can also take amylase producing foods like citrus that could increase the firing rate. The other thing you can do is savor your food, and this is engaging with what's called the cephalic phase of digestion. Cephalic refers to head. It's like Greek, Latin, I forget, for head, like cephalopod. Um, the If you are savoring your food, the smell, the sight, the the kind of the engagement of the food, you're using your frontal lobes to then engage with the vagus nerve to increase saliva production and digestion. And what that means is that you're increasing the amount of amylase available to break down carbohydrates. So right away on what page is this? Page 5. If you need a quick reminder, just what are the things you can do right away to improve your carb digestion, whatever your number is. Now, just to be clear, me improving, if I'm a carb choice of a 2 and I increase my enzymes by up to 500%, that means I have a temporary window where I'm a 10. That's a very different amount of enzyme production compared to someone who's a 10 and exercises, and then multiply that by 5. Now, it doesn't mean that they should eat 50 worth of carbs. It just means that the, there's very real differences between someone who's a 1 or a 2 and someone who's a 9 or a 10 and your carb tolerance. These things will help, but also there are upper limits in terms of how much, like for me, I can't live off of massive amounts of pasta all day, even if I exercise, because even if I ramp up my production, it's just still not enough. So then we got the results. So this is my results page. This page is going to be different depending on what your carb choice number is going to be. And what this is saying is that I'm not going to produce as much enzyme. I'm going to have a reduced tolerance to high starch diets. I have a higher risk of predisposition towards obesity, and may have an increased risk of metabolic abnormalities and more problems with blood sugar control. People with lower People with numbers 1 through 4, they have the most problems with carbohydrates. And in fact, when you look at one of the first large clinics that looked at carb choice was in Melbourne, Australia, and there's a very large Maori, Aborigine, and Pacific Islander population. And after doing so many of these carb tolerance tests, the statistically looked at those populations had the lowest carb numbers, which makes sense because that came from a genealogy without agriculture. Whereas when these tests were run in China, their average was an 8 because it's been a rice culture for thousands of years. European, their was average was a 6. So you can see that the people that have genealogies that had no agriculture, Aborigine, Pacific Islander, Maori, also Inuit, Native American, they have the highest rates of diabetes in the world. And in fact, your carb choice number is a better predictor of the risk of diabetes than a 4-month hemoglobin A1C marker. So when people have lower numbers, they're at a higher risk of blood sugar dysregulation. Now, the and you have a much stronger, one of the reasons why is that you have a much stronger, the lower your number, the stronger your spike in insulin. That may sound odd. It's like, well, insulin is there to quickly draw blood sugar out of your blood into your cells. So why would someone with a really low number have a much higher spike of insulin? Here's why. If I'm a hunter-gatherer and I don't have agriculture and I have access, I find a berry bush once or twice a year that's ripe for a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks out of the year, tops. I have no time to consume as many of those cheap, plentiful carbs as possible because remember, I'm a hunter-gatherer. I'm at constant risk of starvation. So if I hit the jackpot and find a berry bush, I have to eat and absorb as many carbohydrates as possible as quickly as possible before the berries rot or mold or the insects get to them or the deer or other animals or other members of my tribe or some rival tribe get to them first. Because if I gorge and I can consume and absorb 4,000 calories or 6,000 calories worth of fruit sugar or honey in a single session, I've just successfully staved off another week or 2 or 3 of starvation. So there's a massive incentive to spike your insulin up as high as possible in a low carb environment in order to not die from starvation. So that explains why logically people with lower copy numbers have higher swings in insulin because carbohydrates in a non-agricultural society are so precious and so critical for short-term survival. Does that make sense to everyone? Can I just get some feedback on in the chat if that make did everyone follow my evolutionary biological logic there?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Okay. So now I'm a 2. So why is my thing so low? Because my ancestry is from northern latitudes of Russia. Not a lot grows there. Not a lot. Not a lot. So I have the same, like it makes total sense based on my genealogy why I have such a low copy number. So now with people with higher copy numbers, much higher, I think I saw someone had a 15. That's unusually high. Someone with a 15, that comes from a genealogy where there was lots of agriculture. So that means that you have way more enzyme to break down the carbohydrates, but you also have much lower release of insulin. So it's much more steady. It's much steadier. So you're not getting these massive swings. Um, Now, it doesn't mean that someone with the 15 won't ever get a massive swing. There may be other metabolic issues or problems with the pancreas or some other condition that's affecting that. But I'm telling you, just from a baseline comparative level, it's a totally different ball game from being a 2 versus being a 15. So that's here's another way to look at it is that 1 to 4s are low carbs, 5 to 8s are moderate, 9 and above are high carbs. So ones are my keto people. 2 to 4s are paleo. Now, a 2, like me, is I call myself a low carb paleo. A 4 is still paleo, but it's double the number of carbs compared to a 2. So there is a gray space. The 5 to 8s are more Mediterranean, but a 5 and an 8, like the difference between 8 and a 5 is almost double. Almost. So there are shades of gray here. 9 and above is high carb. So what we're going to talk about now is how do you actually customize your number based on your body type. Now,
Dr. Sam, can we get a read for what everybody's numbers are?
oh sure. What
I
are
know that
everyone's numbers?
Lori's aren't back yet, but I know Andrea's are back and Nicole.
So Angie's sharing she's a 5. Nicole, aren't you also a 2?
I think she's a 4.
There's 4. Okay, right. Yeah, you were in the yeah, you were near me. Yeah, you were in the paleo club. Uh, you're in the cool kids club. Uh,
Yeah, 15 is the highest I've seen.
15 is the highest. I've seen the highest. The highest I've ever seen, which is a complete anomaly, was like 22. Like that was that is so incredible. Like we don't even bother putting things above 20 because it's almost never seen. I think once in the I'm in my 11th year of running these tests. I think I've only seen one time ever over 20. Um, ever. So Uh, so let's talk about how do you customize this to who you are? Because I'll give you, I'm gonna tell you a story that's gonna one reveal a lot about how my mind works. It's a very scary proposition, but you're just buckle up. But if I tell you the story as bizarre as it is going to be, it will help you remember the finger rule permanently. You will never forget this. So I'm not telling you this story because it's an interest, at least I think it's an interesting story, but I'm biased. But I'm telling you this because you will never forget the finger rule for as long as you live. So for your benefit is what I'm saying. Uh, so I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about the carb choice number. Like I'm a 2. So, but I'm barely 5'6", 150 pounds. In theory, someone could be much smaller than me or much larger than me and also be a 2. And I don't understand how you can say, um, if you're a 2, that means you have only 200 calories worth of carbs per day. Or if you're a 6, it's like 600 calories. Like, it didn't make sense to me that you could have a number and then it would just line up with some specific grammage of carbs. And I'm sitting there on the couch, and this is true, watching Game of Thrones, and I'm thinking about genetics as I'm watching Game of Thrones, Welcome to my brain. And I am trying to figure, and I'm watching Game of Thrones, and I see Tyrion, played by Peter Dinklage, who's a dwarf, and then I see also the Mountain, who is like this massive, massive person in the show. Now, the Mountain is played by uh this literally the strongest man in the world. He's listed over 500 kgs. That's over 1,000 pounds deadlift. This man's name, and if you think he's got from Viking stock, you're right. In fact, his real name, and I cannot make this up, is Bjorn Bjornsson. Now, if you were to pick the most cliche name of a giant Viking, it would be Bjorn Bjornsson. Like if you're just the laziest writer out of Hollywood, Bjorn Bjornsson, and that is his actual name. Now this is a giant of a man. Now what's funny is you see a picture of him online. Just Google Bjorn Bjornsson's brothers. He is a head shorter than his brothers. He's actually he is a giant, but he is t small compared to his brothers. So what's funny is that Bjorn and Peter are friends in real life. Peter talked about this on a late night talk show host. So you've got a dwarf and a giant actually close friends. And I thought it wouldn't make, in theory, both Peter and Bjorn could be a 6. And if I were to tell them, it's 6 means 600 calories of carbs per day, that'd be too much for Peter, and and the 600 those 600 would be too much for Peter, and the 600 calories would barely fit between Bjorn's front teeth. Like it doesn't make sense. So then I'm thinking, how can I possibly, in good faith, tell someone what their carb number is if there's such a variation between body size? And then I remembered, I used to teach X-ray analysis. So here we are combining in this moment, me sitting on the couch, genetics, Game of Thrones, and X-ray analysis, and I promise you it's all going to come together. When I taught X-ray analysis to other chiropractors, you taught skeletal anatomy, then you taught different types of skeletal anatomy. Dwarves have different skeletal anatomy. We used comparative. One of the best ways to learn anatomy is comparative anatomy. So we compared the finger bones of dwarves to the finger bones of human of non-dwarves, and you've got. So, forgive me for saying the human line. I also play in a live D&D campaign, and like there's humans, there's centaurs, there's dwarves. So I'm just like I go from dwarf to human. I may say like elf at some point. Like, what is elf anatomy like, Dr. Shay? I don't know. I should get an X-ray of that. So that was that was a D&D Freudian slip there. That's funny. We're keeping that in the recording, by the way. Um, and yes, I am an official nerd. I play D&D, and it's fun. You should do it. So, uh, what happens is that the finger bones of dwarves are very different. They're shorter. They're shaped more differently. And then I realized, okay, wait a minute. Finger bones, finger size. What? So then it's okay. Here's the flash of genius. False modesty aside. What scales roughly with height and weight in every single person? The size of your fingers. So Peter's longest finger is probably three-quarters the length of my pinky. Bjorn's longest finger is probably three-quarters the length of my forearm. So what if I were to tell someone you're a six? I say let's no, officially the science says like what's the percentage of grammage per day according to O et al. In 2020, like there are the official numbers and ranges according to the science that's there. I'm saying that if you're not wanting to sit there and count your carbs and measure grams and all this other stuff, here's a really straightforward, not even rule of thumb, rule of finger way to approximate the amount of carbs you can tolerate. It's the size of your fingers. So if Bjorn was a six, it'd be the size of his six fingers, the full finger, not from the knuckle down. It's the full three-dimensional volume of the finger. It's not how many carbs you can stack on top of your fingers. That's legitimately someone asked me that. I said, no, that's cute, but no. It's not the flat surface area of carbs. It's the three-dimensional size. It's the volume of the finger. So my two is this. If it was a four, it'd be this. So if you look at your own fingers, that is your finger rule. So the size, the volume of your fingers, that is the maximum amount of high carbs per meal. You are not obligated to have that amount of carbs per meal. I repeat, you are not obligated to have that amount. It's the upper limit of high carbs. If you have low carbs, and we'll distinguish between high carbs and low carbs in a bit, there's a whole page on that. You can have double the amount. So high carbs is things like potatoes, grains, rice, sweet, fresh, fleshy fruits. Low carbs are things like nuts, beans, and low carb fruits. So there's a difference between a gala apple and a sour Granny Smith apple, right? There's a very big difference in their carb content. So you now have a way of understanding your carbs that's literally at hand on what your carb portions can be. Now, to make things even easier, the volume of your fingers, if you were to close your fist and from not including the wrist, but your whole fist is approximately the volume of 10 fingers. If I take so finger like your thumb fingers. If I were to take my fingers and do this and my thumb here, you can see how my fingers and my thumb is approximately the size of my palm also. So 5 and 5 is 10. So your fist is approximately 10 fingers worth. Now, the fist is also the size of your stomach, unexpanded. So if you are, Debbie, you're 15. I would never tell you to have 15 fingers worth of carbs per meal. I would say everyone's maximum should be at 10. If
You want,
you're, say it again?
can I just say something about
Yeah.
that? Yeah, 10, I am the 15. I see that I'm a 10. So I'm thinking, how do you measure? Now I can see my hand, but how do I measure my hand? And I did a volume displacement with a huge container of water, and I put my hand in there and I measured the displacement of the water. And my hand was 2 cups, open and closed fisted. So I thought, oh, okay, now I know that I can have 2 cups of
Not up to, it's, you're not
up to,
obligated
up
to.
to. Well, I'm going to take advantage of that whenever I'm eating spaghetti, whether it's gluten free or not.
Okay. So this is the risk where the
Right.
report becomes enablement. So just
It's better than my portions right now. I can
okay,
say that.
that's in all seriousness, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good to know. That and
Hmm.
that's the level of self-honesty that the genetics reports bring.
Yeah.
So, and as and also Debbie, like as you continue to like lose weight, your fist will also start to shrink as well. And then
I never even thought about that.
yeah, so like your fist will also shrink in size, particularly if it's like inflammatory weight and all the rest of it. And your and the fist is about 10 fingers worth. That's the upper limit, whether it's high carbs or low carbs. So even if you're like a 6 and you have low carbs, 6 times 2 is 12, you still only want to do at most 10 because it's a size issue. Like your stomach is only so big. Um, so that's that's the finger rule. It's a convergence of genetics, Game of Thrones, and X-ray analysis. Of course it was. Of course, that's so logical. So, and now is anyone going to forget that? Okay.
Dr. Sam, there's a comment from
What if my
Andrea.
fingers are short and stuffy like a gnome? Okay. So fun fact, gnomes are really awesome in Dungeons and Dragons. They're really great characters to play. So then we're just doing a callback. Um, I don't know. Get a tall, pointy hat, stand in a garden and mourn. I don't know. Um, there's so Andrew, what's your number? Do you know? I can't remember. 5. Okay, so the finger rule, I would stick to the finger rule, Andrea, and see how it goes. Like this is a guide. This is not absolute. There is no science behind X-ray, Game of Thrones. Like there's no paper on Game of Thrones and X-ray analysis and genetics. That's not a thing. My job is like I'm a clinician, not a scientist. The clinician translates the science into something practical. If you want the hardcore science, that will be in this bottom left paragraph of your report, what the ranges are. If you want something that's easy to follow, if you don't have an ability to weigh your grammage of things, then use the finger rule and then see how it works. Also, there's ways you can temporarily boost your carbohydrates based on other lifestyle factors like these: chewing more, eating greens first, timing your exercise, more avoiding amylase reducing foods, and increasing amylase producing foods, savoring your foods. So your 5 is your carb, it's fixed but flexible. Like you can boost your carb capacity temporarily with these other factors. Any other questions? Makes sense. Okay, great. All right. Um, and by the way, if you're curious, I'll just jump right to the end. Here's all the references with the hyperlinks. So if you want to go look at these papers, you can literally just click on them and read up on them if you want. O et al. This is the one that actually has the ranges. And we had to yeah. We had let me put this. When I read the paper, it listed the ranges, and then we had to extrapolate from the range. We had to do some mathematics there to get the ranges for the rest of the numbers that he was saying. But we did the math on it. So it's a little bit
Dr. Sam, I have a
TMI, but
question. So if
yeah.
somebody did want to follow the grams rule, because
Hmm.
that was somehow easier for them.
Yeah.
So if you were a six, then that's 600 grams on
No,
average.
no, 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 no. That's not true.
Okay.
I was the 600 grams was not a thing. It was in my head as like I was just like creating numbers of like, well, what is the 60? Is it 100 calories? Is it grams? Is it I don't know, and so O et al. Is the person who actually has the what the gram range is per for low, moderate, and high carb individuals. So this you're only seeing the low carb version because that's the report I have.
Mhm.
In the updated reports, you'll see if someone's a 5 or a 15 or whatever, you'll see the different numbers in the corner here on page 7.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a range. It gives a range, which to me fits into that like body size thing as well. Um, but it's not I think I think the finger rule is way more practical. Okay, so now we're going to meal plans. Um, okay, so if people are wanting to have a less of a glycemic spike, there's different ways to cook and prepare foods. Obviously, deep frying and is probably the worst. Boiling, baking, microwaving also. Obviously, some grains have to be boiled. It's not saying that this is a necessarily a bad thing, but grains do spike people's glycemic responses. So here's some cooking methods, and then we come to the diets. So now we've got this never existed before this report. There's now 7-day recipe guides depending on your style of diet. So this makes implementing carb choice, quick starting it is much faster. So there's recipe guides, and that's all it is. It's a guide, and obviously modify according to your needs and other nutritional realities from your other genetics tests or otherwise. But this is a way for people to get started to make it much easier for people to actually implement this. Um, any questions on that? It's basically you just click on it and it will see it, it'll just emerge what the recipe guides are. All right. And then we come to this page is really worth printing. What are higher carbs, lower carbs, and then we call no starch and then resistant starch. So higher carbs, you've got things here like oats and quinoa and rice and barley and uh, the vegetables, fruits and roots, higher carb fruits, and then you've got lower carb fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, roots, and then little to no starch. These are things like lettuce. Like there's not really, there may be fiber in here, but it's fiber is not like fiber is more like carbs for your bacteria. Sorry, no, forgive me. Resistant carbs are not carbs for you, but carbs for your beneficial bacteria. Little to no starch vegetables, those are more fiber to help build bulk in the stool. So these are different types of starches. And when I say high carb, this is your finger rule, and the lower carbs, this is more these are your 2x your finger rule, it even says right here. I don't apply a finger rule to things like spinach, kale, arugula, Swiss chards. That's not, those are not, those are not things I'm worried about that are counting towards your finger rule. This is more fiber, not carbs. Okay, any questions on this? Okay. So then we come to foods that increase uh your ability, you increase your firing rate, increase your ability to break down carbohydrates. So foods that contain citric acid also increase the firing rate of these genes that make amylase. sun-dried tomatoes, lemons, limes, passion fruits, berries, tomato paste, mandarin, pineapple, oranges, grapefruit, etc. Now, please note that we're only listing the foods from an amylase producing lens. Not, this doesn't mean all these foods are healthy for every person. Some people don't tolerate tomatoes because it's a nightshade. So I don't want you to view this list as, oh, that means all these foods are healthy and I can have as much as I want. That is not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying at all. It is strictly looking at food through amylase supporting lens. And so be smart. Some people are super sensitive to histamine, and lemons and limes may not be a good idea. People may OD from, they think, oh, oranges, and I can just drink all the orange juice I want. Like, no, orange juice is just liquid sugar. And sometimes people just really OD on the sugar on orange juice. I know I did as a kid. In fact, I'm writing a comedy show about my childhood breakfast and going through every component of my childhood breakfast and showing just how actually unhealthy it was, even though it was being sold as being wholesome, which is then a metaphor for the 80s being sold as wholesome, but actually was quite sinister with all like the scary stuff that was happening in the world. Back then it was like high gluten bagels and hydrogenated, I can't believe it's not butter, and lots of orange juice and happy kids cereal. Like, oh my God, this is so wholesome. Like, no, and skim milk. And it's like, no, it's actually completely sinister and unhealthy, and it's gonna be a complete lie about how healthy it was. So, I, that'll come out in a comedy show. I promise it'll be funny later on. But this orange juice is really it's kind of a sore spot for me because it's just doping people with sugar very quickly. 2 ounces of orange juice is the equivalent of one orange. And people who take like a 16-ounce glass of oranges, they're taking the sugar equivalent of 8 oranges in one cup. In one not cup, sorry, technically 16 ounces, 2 cups. In 2 cups of orange juice. Like that is so much sugar. Um, Now, then we've got the foods that break down, that decrease the firing rate, that decrease amylase. So, berries, certain vegetables, and certain drinks like tea and white red wine. Now, it doesn't mean that berries are bad for you. I'm not saying that. It's just that food's complicated and that if you're gonna do these, then eat your other carbs first, so your saliva can mix with the amylase and these higher carb foods without the berries just pulling down the switch and shutting down some of the amylase production. So, or you can combine with the other recommendations here. You just do more of these to counterbalance the to counterbalance the things that shut down amylase. Also, smoking reduces amylase. All right, so then there's other habits that support digestion, lowering stress levels. We mentioned chewing, avoiding smoking, better sleep, exercise, and this is also something with note. If you're very athletic, you actually may require more carbs. And because you're burning through just kind of so many calories if you're very athletic. Staying hydrated, and then here we come to some supplements, bitters, pancreatic enzymes, inositol. Here's several herbs. Here's some minerals and American ginseng. And then if you're looking for resistant starch, green banana powder, arabinogalactin powder. Uh, these are the different categories that are related to carb choice that when you work with your practitioner, uh, the, they may help you choose the right nutrients or supplements to help you with your digestion, your carb metabolism, sugar cravings, and finding a right source of resistant starch. This wasn't included in any of the prior reports. And then we've got a section on exercise. And the thing to know about your exercise is uh, these two researchers, they published a paper in 2014 and 10 years later in 2024. The 2014 showed long distance exercise increased your amylase by up to 500%, but then later on they showed that the high intensity interval training also increased the amylase. So the best thing to do on exercise is to ideally work with a practitioner to look at your biomechanics and your physical capacity and what type of exercise is practical for you to do in your how you can recover, but also check your Fit Genes genetic blueprint because there's three major categories for um, how you exercise. Like what's your fiber type? Are you a speed or an endurance muscle type? What's your VO2 max and aerobic capacity? What's your injury risk, whether it's related to collagen or inflammation? And the Fit Genes Genetic Blueprint has a lot more on exercise. This page is sharing that the research that exercise really helps carb amylase production and can help with your carb metabolism. Then we created a glossary, key terms. If you're wanting to look up what is AMY1, what's a copy number, what's amylase, etc. And then we come to references and disclaimers. So here's a jargony scientific paragraph explaining what we just talked about. Here's references, and then here's a whole longer list of disclaimers. So that is the carb choice report. That is the carb choice blueprint. This is newly updated, and all carb choices going forward are going to be this, wherever you are in the world. Any questions? Any questions? Anything you want clarified? Anything that really stood out as making like an aha moment? Are we all gonna just like celebrate by going and eating bagels? What's happening?
Going to carb comas.
Right.
I think that the way that you explained this from the beginning with the cannons on the report that we have, you actually had like the difference between a 2 and a 10 and that visual, like you're saying here with the cannons, but like you actually put that on there and it made complete sense so that you don't realize how important that the amylase is to your body. And I appreciate you also saying about the foods because when I went over the citrus list, whatever those, I can't eat half of that stuff. I think the only thing on that list from my personal diet is apricots, and I'm like, well, now how am I going to do that? But how you explained it was, okay, this isn't for you to eat. This is for you to see what you could eat, and now I feel kind of better about that. Like I'm not missing out.
Totally.
I need to chew better. That's the biggest thing. We talked about that before. Ugh, chew. So thank you.
Any other questions or reflections? Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, so uh okay. So they don't have yet, but it's happening. I think okay. Crystal, if you check on the status of Lori's reports when you have a
Yes.
chance. Thanks.
Yep.
Um yeah, I think so it'll make sense, Lori, when you see it. And then also you have access to the learning library. And then these will also be put into the learning library as well. Um, okay. Any other questions? Oh, this one is still pen. Okay, that's what I got confused. Yeah. So, so the fishing genetic blueprint should come relatively quickly within the first month or so. The carb choice report takes longer because it's a separate machine, it's a separate swab, it's in a separate place. It is about a month or up to two, depending on a whole bunch of variables of actually getting the carb choice results. We're just there's like almost no labs in the world that do this. So it's very difficult to source one. It's very worth it. Good news is, like with all genetics, once you get the data, even if it's a month or two later than the first report, the data is good for life. So it may be just a delay in the short term, but you have the info for the long term. And we are looking for a faster lab to run this, but that's probably not gonna. just a kind of an ongoing project because there's just so few labs in the world that run this carb choice report. Any other questions before we sign off? So for Lori, the question is how long, if you're in the gold program, it's 6 months. And then there's an option to renew, there's an option to renew at the end of 6 months for a small fee to continue on.
Thank you, Dr. Sam. This is great.
Okay. All right. Any other questions related to genetics that people have for me in the 7 minutes we have left? And I am looking up pictures of garden gnomes because I got inspired by the chat just because it's amusing to me.
I have a question. So since you have a low carb number, one of the things have been trying to do is chew more.
Uh-huh.
And I at most can do like five.
Okay,
So
so here's a trick. I can actually tell you.
I would love to know what kind of trick you do because it feels like I have nothing in my mouth left to chew other than my tongue.
Right. So the the thing to do is don't count the number of chews, count the number of full breaths. Like take a full breath in and out 3 times for each mouthful and just keep chewing for that. Because if you try to count to 30, you're going to drive yourself crazy. But if you can do 3 breaths, it's about 30. I mean, if you just chewing and you obviously you close the back of your throat with your back of your tongue so you're not going to choke on your food as you're breathing in and out, you're doing it through your nose. 3 full breaths in and out is about 30 chews. You're muted, Kelly. Okay, okay, got it. Any other questions related to genetics?
I thought of something else because I do think
Uh,
I remember one time in the report you saying though, is 10 still the max? So even like Debbie who won the lottery with 15,
yeah,
is she still doesn't
because
go really
it's
above
it's
10,
it's
right?
still a 10, it's still a 10 because it's the size of your stomach. You're
Uh,
running into a volume issue.
Kind of fun being able to like waddle around. Full.
Don't recommend it.
Chewing 3 times. Okay. Just wanted to double check on that. Thank you.
Mhm. And by the way, this is true. I was just speaking of gnomes. Um, I have my favorite YouTube D&D campaign I watch because it's so funny. It's better than almost any movie that's out there because like it's like improv meets fantasy. They were literally going into the Queen's Gardens and they got attacked by garden gnomes that were monks. Like it was like literally this the gnome meme just kind of emerged randomly. And so the joke was is the garden gnomes were the people were the trying to take on the characters who garden gnomes turning evil. Anyway, more insight into my state of consciousness and how my mind works. So we worked in Game of Thrones, genetics, X-ray analysis, and D&D. It's been a great hour, guys. It's been great. We've learned a lot today, haven't we? We've learned so much. Any other questions so I can further embarrass myself? Any? Any at all? I'm kind of disappointed you're all on mute because I can't hear your laughter. I can see your smiles, but I can't. Okay. All right.
Any
I'm going.
ideas what we're covering next time,
Uh,
Crystal?
Not yet.
Does anyone
chat
have any ideas or they have questions,
requests.
Yeah.
requests? Well, it sounds like everybody has great clarity in
Well,
the genetics department.
I'm always interested in the exercise. So with especially hearing about how it too much is a big inflammation issue too, and maybe
Did
all
did
those kind
we
of
do
stuff.
an exercise
It was a while
thing
ago.
a while
Yeah, it
ago?
was months
Okay.
ago. Hmm.
All right. And then we've had updates since then because I've updated the collagen portion as
Okay.
well. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's a big buzzword too, collagen. So
Collagen.
clarity on that because I feel like just walking into Target, everything's like collagen, collagen, collagen. I'm like, what? So that would be great, like having a good
Collagen.
understanding of like,
Sure.
this marketing that's coming at us so that we're like, educated and not falling for
Mhm.
the tricks.
Sure. So, in one respect, collagen is a waste product of the cattle industry that's now been turned into a health food. And now it's not necessarily that it's not a waste, not a waste, that it's not a health food. It's just collagen. And we'll talk more about it next time, but collagen lacks tryptophan. So if people are trying to do a protein powder, then make sure you're eating other proteins as well because you need tryptophan to as the rate limiting step for all your other protein synthesis. You also need to look at other things like vitamin C for making collagen. And then there's other things that help with like creatinine and sorry, not creatinine, creatine and inositol. Um, and that uh, collagen also can have high histamine for people who are histamine sensitive. And you want to make sure that the collagen comes from a clean source. So, like I know the Designs for Health has, I think they have the patent on or access to like a specialized three-part collagen something or other. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up. Um, and that collagen is very helpful for people who are dealing with joint inflammation and pain, but we want to watch out, like with any magic bullet marketing, that it's not just the magic bullet we think it is without looking at other lifestyle factors and so on. But people do have there are two genes we look at for collagen synthesis that if people have variations on them, like I do, then they're a much higher risk of injury. So they've got to, uh, uh, they've got to use it's not just about taking collagen, it's actually focusing on recovery from exercise. And collagen is part of that recovery, but there's more to recovery than just downing spoonfuls of collagen. Um, and and histamine is taking if you are sensitive to histamine and taking collagen, taking a Dow histaminase enzyme can help with that, as well as antihistamine nutrients. But if people are still over exercising and over-inflaming and injuring their collagen, just taking scoops of collagen and antihistamine is not going to be sufficient. But we'll talk more about that future
Yeah,
date.
and Lori, there's so much information about histamine inside the DNA decoded portal as well. There are several videos that break down, what histamine is, the antihistamine diet, and a bunch of tips around that too.
Mhm.
I do
All
want to
right.
comment about getting bombarded whenever you're out. I just thought of this the other day. I have pages and pages of listening to podcasts and my friends and whatever, everything, whatever you read. I just decided the other day that I was going to eliminate all of that because now we're more aware, like you said, with the collagen. Well, that's going to now come at us. When you go to Target, you're going to see that when you go to Walmart. So I've decided this is new. This is a new thing, but I've decided to truly just eliminate all of it because we are here with Dr. Sam. I'm with my doctor. Like, what more can I possibly ask for? Like at some point, I have to stop looking and I need to start doing. That's for me. I'm 58. Like, I'm walking the 40-year journey. I wanted the 40-day.
Right, right. Well,
Yeah.
I thank you, Debbie, for sharing that. That's a very wise perspective. Like there comes a limit. Information becomes its own form of avoidance,
Oh,
and um, the if you are to listen to something, I would strongly recommend you just load up the learning library in the genetics
yeah.
and just
Hmm.
listen to that because
That's what
that
I've
the
been
whole
doing.
point of that is practical. And th there's an old saying like, what's more important, study or action? And the answer is study as long as it leads to action.
And your portal, I mean, I have hit that thing hard. And what I really appreciate what I appreciate about it is that I can turn that into what the information that I have from
Mhm.
my genetics. Like there's no guesswork. If you're talking about,
Totally.
society or the satiation, however I feel like I
Satiety.
can't, yeah, no, I didn't realize that I didn't know that that was my problem. Do you know? So when I read about that, I'm like, oh my gosh. So really, this is truly tailored to who I am. And
Mhm.
I love it. I'm so happy
Yeah,
about it.
you're very welcome, Debbie, and I'm real proud of you for like really
Yeah.
taking taking the genetic bull by the horns. And
Hmm.
so if you are going to be listening to info, just again study as long as it leads to action, and then just
Yeah.
the library is your best friend on that one. So thank you all for joining us. It looks like we got to vote for exercise next month, so we'll cover exercise, and then if there's other things and we got time at the end, we'll answer any questions what other questions related to genetics. Thank you all again, and I'll see you next month.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.